Today we are going to teach you guys how to build a floor frame for your model house. So some of the things you are going to need is some material for your girder, an architectural scale, a pen, pencil, and marker, a utility knife, plenty of joist and sill material, a long ruler, and your floor plan. That can either be on the computer or a printed version. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we are going to start by figuring out exactly where our girder needs to go. So your girder is going to be a beam that runs through the center of your house to help support the weight of all of your joists. So let's take a look at that. Now, I did say center, but truthfully, in different kinds of houses, you might need two girders to go through, depending on the total width of your house. For the purpose of what we're doing, we're going to put one, and we're going to put it in the center. Now, you got two dimensions to your house. You got your length, and you have your width. So we want to make sure that we put our girder in, so the girder is going to go the long way. What this will do is when you run your joists on top of it eventually, your joists are spanning a shorter distance, which would give you a kind of a more stronger structural house. So we can start with a long ruler, and let's just get the numbers of your house. So this one, I got 16 5/8, and this way I got 10 5/8, and hopefully our numbers are matching up all throughout. So down there it's 10 1/2. We're pretty close. We're going to go with our longer number, 10 5/8. Now what I need to do is find dead center of 10 5/8. Okay? So in this case, because I do want to run my girder this way, I can just switch to my architectural scale, but just use the regular ruler side here. So as you see, I got my regular ruler, no scale needed. All right, so when it comes to splitting a number in half, splitting 10 5/8 in half may seem a little tricky. We're going to start with the whole number. So what's half of 10? Well, that's 5. And then what's half of 5/8? So anytime we want to split a fraction in half, all we need to do is double the bottom number. So we have 5/8. I want to split it in half. I need to double that 8 to 16. So that gives me 5/16. 5/16 plus 5/16 gives me 5/8. So then I can mark out on here 5 and 5/16 in the center. Now you can see I'm marking with a pen on top of this foam, and it doesn't work very well. Pencils don't work very well either, but a marker, even though this guy's kind of got a fat tip to it, we're going to be able to mark dead center, and we're going to do the same thing over here. So I'm looking for 5 and 5/16. Okay, so I got my two marks, which is exactly what I want. Then we're going to take your girder, okay, and we're going to set that right on top in the dead center. Here's what we get to do. We want to make it so it's about halfway through the thickness of your foundation. Once I do that, I can go ahead and mark this out. And again, this is a super fat tip marker. If you have something a little more narrow, that would be beneficial. But what you can see is if I can cut on the inside of these lines, I'm going to be in good shape. The other thing I'm going to do is put this up so the top of this is flush with the top of my foundation here. And now I'm going to mark out the sides. 1, 2, and that bottom. Okay? So if I tilt this up a little bit, you're going to see that I also have it marked out on the inside here. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Just tilt this a little bit. Okay, and I will quickly mark this out. So again, I'm going to try to go dead center with my mark and dead center with my foundation. and mark, and underneath. So it's at this point that we will need to cut out a pocket on each side for our girder. Now, normally a foundation company, a concrete company, is going to have this marked out for you so you don't have to cut it out later. But here we're going to use our utility knife with a retractable blade to cut this out. So we're just going to go right on the inside of the lines here, kind of in a little sawing motion. And we're going to make 6 cuts. So 1 was up the side, 2's along the bottom, 3 is up the side as well. Okay, 4 is going straight down. And then 5 is going to get this side, 6 is going to get this side. And the hope is that if we do that and we cut deep enough, we have this little piece that comes out, and we now have a nice square pocket for our girder to sit into. We're going to do this on each side. So we're going to cut right on the inside of that line, and your marks and measurements on this one are pretty important because we want this girder sitting flush with the top of your foundation wall when you're done. So if you cut too deep, we're going to have to add some material in down the road. But if you cut too shallow, we can just recut. Okay? So there's my second piece. And I have a nice pocket over here, and I have a nice pocket over here. From here, we're going to take our girder, and we're going to put it in that pocket so it sits flush here. And then we get to mark it to length over here. All right, so I got it marked to the length I want. So now I take it over to the saw and cut it. If you are at home working on this, this is kind of a thicker board, but we can use a utility knife to score it enough times. Okay, by scoring it, we're just making a little pass. As you can see, I'm keeping my fingers out of the way, and we can actually kind of work this all the way around on all sides. I'm going to mark out this side just to make sure I'm going right. Okay, I like that. So we're going to score it enough times, and you should be able to break it after enough scores to get a pretty decent cut here. There we go. Okay, so then I just got a little bit of wood fiber that I can kind of saw off. And again, be careful with these utility knives because they're sharp and they do cut. If you're doing this in the classroom, you're just going to take it over to the scroll saw, and I got this one already pre-cut, ready to go. So it's sitting in there. I want to make sure that we're flush here so it doesn't stick up above and it doesn't sink too far down. Okay, if it does go too far up, you can try pressing it down a little bit, or you can just take out a little bit of extra material if needed. And if it sits down too far, then we'll probably end up filling these little pockets with a little bit of extra hot glue. From here, we're going to take our hot glue gun and we're going to fill this cavity and this cavity with a little bit of hot glue. Then it's just a matter of pushing this in and making sure that we're flush here and holding it in place until it is secure on its own. We have this in place, and I want to kind of show you guys what I mean by flush is right here. This board does not come above right over here. Same thing on this side. We're just nice and flush going all the way through. If you're too high, you're going to want to adjust that right now. And if you're too low, same thing. We want to bring that up a little bit. Now, houses have girders to help support the weight of the load of the floor over the whole thing. But a girder itself isn't enough. We actually have posts and beams inside of your basement. Sometimes if you have an unfinished basement, you'll see this as steel columns. If you have a finished basement, oftentimes we wrap those beams with some wood to kind of conceal them. Other times we can hide them in walls. But here's what we're going to want to do. And I'm going to flip this guy up to try to give you guys a decent view. So this is just a cutoff of our girder is what we're going to use here. So if I take this and I put it right on our foundation floor, I'm then going to take my pen and scribe on the underside of our girder. Okay? And I'm going to get a mark. This is going to tell me how much I need to cut off. Now, what I can also do is I can flip this guy around and do this again. Typically, we have a post every 8 to 10 feet in your basement. So for this one, I can kind of take this measurement from inside of my wall to inside of my wall and divide it by 3. So I'm going to do that right now. All right, so my number is 15 1/4. All right, so if I divide that by 3, I would get 15 1/16 with 1/16 left over. Okay, so in this case, we are not going to stress about 16ths or 8ths or even 1/4 inch. What I can do though is I can cut these guys to length and then I can get ready to install my post. Now, for time's sake, I got a couple here cut already. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to, well, I guess one, I'm going to mark out exactly where my 5 1/16 is. So I'm going to line that up at the beginning. There's one. And then on my other end, there's 2. So these are the 2 spots where I'm going to put these support columns underneath. So I'm going to glue the top, I'm going to glue the bottom, and I'm going to slide this right underneath like so. Okay, you'll have to hold that for just a minute to get that in there. And then again, 1, 2, and we're going to slide that underneath right there. Okay. Okay. So now I got 2 support columns underneath my girder, so we're feeling pretty good about that. As you can see, they go right in line with them, which is exactly what we want.